Greetings, Doodlebugs. My name is Mary, and I'm going to show you how to art. Specifically, I'm going to show you how to create a shading technique using a pen. Just a pen.
How to art.
Years ago, I did a big old ink tutorial that includes some of these tips, but today I want to primarily focus on just using a regular, everyday ballpoint pen. The pen I'm using today appears to be a lovely knockoff of my favorite Uniball pens from my childhood. This is from Arteza. This is the Arteza rollerball pen, 0.5 millimeters. And I'm using this particular one because it wasn't that expensive to buy in bulk. And this paper is not all that fancy. So whether you have higher end art supplies on hand, or if you're just in an office setting, in a classroom, quarantine on a ship, whatever your circumstances or skill level, this is a great way to start practicing learning how to shade and draw and learning how to art. Okay, before I get into these tips, some quick housekeeping. At the end of this video, there's some announcements about events and specialty things coming up. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, where I will be updating you as to things that are coming up, like events and meetups, art sales, all that fun stuff. I'm at Mary Doodles on all the things, primarily Instagram and Twitter is where I will be updating you on things to come. And also, Patreon. Need I say more? Let's get into it. Let's do it. This first technique is called hatching. It's pretty straightforward. You take your pen and you make a line down on the page. A hatch mark, just a line. When you add more lines next to your previous one in a nice little row, your eye looks at that and it creates a gray tone. And you can alter that shade, making it darker or lighter by putting lines either closer or farther apart. You can also play with the length of the line. You can make them longer, shorter. You can adjust the space between the lines. They don't even have to be in neat little rows. You can alter the direction your lines are coming from. You can also contour your lines, curving them to create a shape and a form, sort of like the way hair grows. The point is, when you're hatching, if you want to create darker tones, you put your lines closer together, and lighter tones by putting your lines further and farther apart. Cross hatching. All right, you've mastered hatching, you know what you're doing. Cross hatching is pretty similar to hatching, except this time we're crisscrossing the lines. So again, you can begin practicing by drawing some vertical lines side by side, and then repeat that line action except going perpendicular. You got some cross hatching. You want to make darker tones, put the lines tighter and closer together, lighter tones farther apart. Don't be afraid to just swoosh those lines onto the page. Takes a little practice to get the feel of it, and depending on the pens and the paper that you're drawing on, you might get a little bit more ink bleed, or you might have finer lines. When in doubt, try it out. If you're working in your sketchbook, this is the perfect place to practice these techniques. Or if you're doing a drawing that is intended to be finished and shown, or just a nicer piece of work, it helps to have some scrap paper on hand where you can test out your techniques. Okay, Chaz, you ready to move on to one of my favorite techniques because it's really fun to say? Stipple. Stipple. Stippling is basically dot work, point work, pixels. You put a dot on the page, you put another dot on the page, all these dots together, it's creating a tone. Again, closer the dots are together, the darker that tone. Further apart, the lighter the tone. This is also a very patient technique. Stippling does not go fast, but it has a really cool effect. And some people like to stipple in neat little lines and organized dots. Other times you can do it more chaotically, just dabbing the dots on the page. It's really all about what you prefer. You can also do larger dots, smaller dots, play with the size and the spacing to get different effects. Feathering. This is a technique that is very similar to hatching, and it creates a very high contrast style of shading. So I'm gonna draw a line, and that's gonna be my darkest edge. And from that edge, I'm going to hatch outward. I'm going to create hatches outward and away from my darkest edge, feathering it out. It creates these lines, oftentimes they're tapered. So when you're feathering, the idea is you have a shadow side and a light side, and you're making these hatch lines but they're thicker and darker toward the shadow side, and the line tapers as it goes toward your direction of light. And you can play with the thickness of the lines. If you have a brush tip pen or are painting with brushes, this is a really fun technique to do. You can also use just a plain old pen and hand draw it manually and fill it in. Wait. For lack of a better term, I'm just calling this weight. I don't know if there's a technical term for this. This technique also creates a high contrast effect, and you're basically playing with the thickness of the lines that you're making. You can make a normal, whatever line that comes out of the pen. You can also add more thickness to that line, either manually with your pen, or if you have a brush tip pen or something special like that, you can toy with it. By making the line vary in weight, thinner in some points, thicker at others, it's gonna create a shadow effect. So if you want a side to look like it's more in shadow, then you're gonna make that line thicker. And if you want it to look like there's light coming from a certain direction, make that line thinner. I kind of messed up on the bottom, but you get it. You can kind of combine this idea with the hatching to create a very dramatic tone that fades from darker to lighter. Just a little alteration to the line adds a big impact. And if none of those techniques work for you, I don't know, it's your drawing. Do what you want. Get playful, experiment with it. Do patterns, do shapes, do little chest hairs of Zeus to create shade, or scribbles. Or hey, someone asked if you can use water and a regular ballpoint pen on the page. Some inks are different, some are more waterproof than others, but you can play around, put some water on the page. You know, whatever you're feeling. Just remember, if you want a lighter tone, allow more of that paper to show through. Space out your lines, make your shapes bigger. And for darker tones, get that ink closer together. The tighter the lines, the darker it will look. And practice, practice, practice. Show me what you got. If you did a practice page you want to share, or share some of your own examples of shading with just a pen, I would love to see it. Post it, hashtag it, #HowToArt. I'm always taking comments and suggestions. If there's anything you want to learn how to do, how to draw or paint, let me know. Leave a comment below. As promised, I have a couple announcements for you, dear Doodlebugs. Thank you for sticking around to the end. And thank you, first off, very much for your love and support. I know the last paint along video that I did was a little dramatic. Who needs that pen? Friday the 13th, I'm gonna be doing a live stream on Instagram at 9 p.m. Come join me. Don't go out on a Friday night, stay in with me. Let's do art together. Instagram, 9 p.m., Friday the 13th. So I'll be going live a little bit more in this next week to keep myself sane. I'm also doing some spring cleaning around here, and I got a bunch of paintings and artwork that needs to go. So starting now, officially, there's a studio sale in my shop at marydoodles.com. Studio sale going on until the end of March. Go and get yourself some art. I'm on Patreon. You can go support there and get some extra goodies like weekly sketchbook tours. I open up my sketchbook to you and tell you in real time what I'm going through. Right now, I just wrapped up a sketchbook that I'd started in 2015 and then intermittently added to it as I forgot it existed and then rediscovered it. It's gonna be this evolution tour of what I've been doing since 2015 until now. Next week, I have a special video coming out. It is the first in a 12-part series. I will be posting one of these videos every month for the next year. Can you guess what it is? I think you could. I think someone out there can be clever enough to know. Thank you, Doodlebugs, for returning. And if you're new here, welcome. I do videos every week. Just hit that subscribe button and the bell and all the things to know what's going up. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Get all the most recent up-to-date updates. And thank you very much for watching, Doodlebugs. I'll see you next week. Goodbye. Mwah.